$77.92. December lean hogs up 52 cents at 88.45. February up 22 at 90.67. April up a nickel at 93.95. From the farm desk, I'm Dwayne Murley.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you.
Well, there's quite the opening. I never thought, Pastor Redenius, I'd have to open that way in my life, but apparently I do. Pastor Alan Redenius is here. Of course, he's a longtime former CPA in our town, and he is now the senior pastor out at First Covenant Church here in town, which is great church, by the way. I've been there. Do you have Bible study at your church? I mean, do you have Bible study groups?
Yes, we do on Wednesday nights.
Wait a minute. For some reason, your microphone isn't working. I don't know what's going on here. Hello.
You got me now?
Well, I have some sort of interference. I don't know what it is.
It's Satan testing.
It's Satan. Satan putting us to the test, I suppose. Here, let's try. Okay, try.
All right, you got
All
me
right,
now?
we're good.
All right, good.
A city councilman, newly appointed city councilman. Of course, Andy Fritz has been city councilman in the past, and Nevin Conrad, unfortunately, has stepped aside to take a position as magistrate in Humboldt County, and good for Nevin. And the city council saw fit, and maybe it made sense at first, to nominate Andy Fritz, a past councilman, to take the place of Nevin until Nevin's term has run out. Now, no one knew, and I've known Andy Fritz for a while. We're not really close friends, but we're a friendly acquaintance. We have been in the past anyway. I didn't know that he belonged to the Satanic Temple. Now, Andy is trying to minimize it, and some of our city council people have made some very unfortunate remarks in my estimation. Councilman Allstadt seemed to imply that there's very little difference between the Satanic Temple that Councilman Fritz tells us he's an adherent to, and the Catholic Church, or at least John F. Kennedy's Catholicism. What?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Councilwoman Schur tells us it's sad that we're here. We're just sad people for questioning Andy's membership in the Satanic Temple. We're just sad. And Councilman Menke, you and I know Terry. We go back with him.
Yes, we do.
He's a sharp guy. He started talking about freedom of religion or other, for a sharp guy, it was gibberish. It was really, from my estimation here, Pastor, an attempt to justify their appointment of Andy Fritz without, they were surprised when this came forward, and now they're in too far to back out.
They were surprised to be challenged.
Yeah, they were. Well, that was the most disturbing. That's what I heard. The echo of that is what I heard in Councilwoman Schur's voice. You are challenging us. Just sit there and do as we say. And that seems to be echoed by Councilman Menke and Allstadt as well. By the way, before I allow the pastor to talk, and of course I'm going to give him every opportunity, I texted Andy Fritz this morning, and this was my question to him, or this is what I said to him on text. I said, Andy, you can explain yourself or leave it to the interpretation of others. Would you like to phone in and answer a few questions? He texted back. I appreciate the offer, Mike, but all I needed to say was said last night. I am focused on the task of becoming a council person now. Okay. All right. So your response to the Satanic Temple from a Christian pastor's point of view, please. I know you never expected this in your life, did you?
Well, you at the beginning, before we came on there, you said, well, we're going to talk about Satan. I said, how about we talk about Jesus?
That's right. Let's talk about Jesus and Satan.
Yeah, because, there's two diametrically opposed forces there. You've got good versus evil. And Satan, we know, is a fallen angel out of heaven, come to the earth, kicked out of heaven by God himself, because Satan wanted to elevate himself to be God.
Yes.
And now he's here. He roams the earth. We know him as Satan. And the Bible tells us that Satan has come. He's got one purpose: to kill, steal, and destroy. And Jesus comes to give us life, and to give us life abundantly. And so there's quite a difference between, heaven and hell. And,
it's incredible. We have to sit here and talk about this, isn't it?
Yeah, so maybe, Andy Fritz, I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't think in my recollection.
He's a recovered Catholic, from what I understand.
I don't know what that means.
Catholicism was taking a bit of a beating last night at the council meeting.
I have no idea what that means, but there's only one way to heaven. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Yes.
And no one comes to the Father except through me. And certainly if that is, Mr. Fritz's opinion and belief, to believe in Satan, well, then, I'm not one to judge, but God says that he's not going to be in heaven with us, Mike.
Councilman Fritz described himself last night as a card-carrying member of the Satanic Temple, and added that the temple members do not worship supernatural beings. So I called up the website. I would beg to differ.
Yeah.
It's on my Facebook page. The 7 fundamental tenets that Councilman Fritz referenced last night are on their website, which I've reposted to my personal Facebook page and the AM 1400.
And that's the Temple of Satan website page. The Temple of Satan website is correct. Yeah. We shouldn't advertise that,
No, we shouldn't. But the 7 tenets sound like ultra-libertarian, or even I've studied reason in economics in the past and in college. Pure reason. I was interested in it but I'm a man of faith, as you are, certainly.
Yes.
And I couldn't go that way. But the tenets are benign, but the iconography, the imagery and I really would like people to either go to my Facebook pages or to call this up themselves. The iconography is fierce dragons.
And the goat head.
Yes, the goat head is there.
Yeah.
This is Satanism. They have skulls being crushed by dragons, and yes, the goat's head. Those are satanic symbols. This is not a benign organization.
No, it is not.
This is a satanic organization, and a city councilman in Fort Dodge has just told us that this is his belief. And we have been told by council members we're a bunch of dunderheads for wondering about it.
Well, I think we should wonder about it, because certainly God is not going to honor that appointment. Because
I don't think so, no.
And, if he's not going to honor that appointment, he's not going to honor Fort Dodge. And I believe in good and I believe in evil. Evil is present among us all the time. And invite it in, as the council seems to have done, just doesn't seem to be, to me, very good judgment.
Councilwoman Schur was quoted last night as saying, Andy does not worship the devil. I beg to differ. I don't believe the councilwoman knows what she's talking about in this regard. All she has to do is go to the website, the Satanic Temple website, take a look at the goat's head and other satanic symbols that we're all familiar with, or most of us are, to know that actually this is Satanism.
Absolutely.
And then again, Councilman Allstott said he thought long and hard about this, according to the Fort Dodge Messenger. And of course, the Messenger did its usual great job of reporting. I mean, maybe somebody should have asked, by the way, isn't this the devil's work? I mean, nobody asked that question. Councilman Allstott said he thought long and hard about it. And I'm quoting from the Messenger this morning. I have sat with Andy on the council, and I have never seen Andy do anything negative. He said refusing to appoint Fritz because of his temple membership would be a form of prejudice, not unlike that held by people who did not want John F. Kennedy to become president because he was Catholic. Is there a difference between Catholicism and Satanism in Councilman Allstott's mind?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
I have no idea what he's talking about either. That's just out from outer space. This entire thing is from outer space. Wow. Several, and I didn't even know this was going to be an issue, or I'd have showed up. And I would have actually asked questions. The messenger should
Well, you'd have been good to ask questions at the council
I
meeting.
would have been. Well, they would have tried to shut me down and dismiss me and house me, because they'd already made up their mind.
Yeah, it was always, they didn't even call for public opinion after they made the motion, did they?
Well, they made the motion, and the motion passed to seat Councilman Fritz, now Councilman Fritz. Then it was time for comment, and there was a lot of comment.
Yeah.
Apparently, the room was packed. Again, I really regret that I wasn't there. Again, I didn't know that Satanism was on the agenda. Then after the public comment, they voted Fritz on the council.
Okay. All right. Well, I understood that they voted him onto the council, and then there was public opinion.
They went into the room knowing that Andy was a member of the Satanic Temple, and that they were going to vote for him anyway for the most superfluous and supercilious and empty reasons I've ever heard any public official in any size town give ever. I'm very disappointed, especially in Councilman Menke.
I'm disappointed with all of them.
I'm disappointed with all of them as well. Mayor Bemrick Mayor Bemrick and Andy Fritz, I know, are friends going way back.
Okay.
And Mayor Bemrick was out of town last night. He was somewhere. He wasn't at a council. But I assume that Mayor Bemrick instigated putting Andy Fritz on the council. I think frankly, due to subsequent events, we probably could have done better. And I think that all council members should explain themselves better, and I'm not really inclined to have them on the radio with me.
Well, you're going to get comments and answers to your questions like, well, you can't discriminate, but
discrimination.
But I think on the other hand,
our faith is discriminatory.
I think good
Pastor.
Judgment is and discernment are important.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty radical. Pretty radical.
Well, I preach Jesus, so that's pretty
yes,
radical.
Yes, you do. What lessons can we take from this as Christian men and women, Pastor?
Well, we all have to be aware, of what's going on around us. And I think that, this is one indication of evil lurks about in every corner of our lives.
Yes.
Even in the city council, in the city hall. And we have to be ever vigilant to challenge it. And when that evil tries to put you down because they accuse you of being judgmental, because they accuse you of being discriminatory,
that's cheap.
You got to stand up for what you believe.
It's very sad.
It is sad.
That's what's sad.
I mean, for a couple of country hicks growing up in Kossuth County, you and I, we know that.
My God. Yeah, one of the people last night, Mr. Davis, said the devil is pure evil. That's the way isn't that the way it is, Pastor?
It is, yeah.
There are t-shirts. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, again, I urge you to go to the Satanic Temple website and see what I'm talking about. They are also selling t-shirts that has what appears to be a pentagon, or not a pentagon, but
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
That weird shaped star.
Yeah, that weird thing. Yeah. And
pentagram.
Pentagram. Thank you very much.
There you go. You're the one with the words. So how come you didn't know that?
Well, I don't use a pentagram every day.
You invited people to go to the website. I would caution them to beware lest they be drawn in, is what the Bible tells us to be wary about evil.
That's right. Well, if you can be drawn in by the ugliness that's on this website and the spiritual horror that it portrays, then you were halfway there anyway.
Yeah.
I'm nauseated. But the point I'm trying to get to is they're selling t-shirts that says, with this pentagram on it, it says, "Hail thyself. Hail thyself." And of course, St. Francis told us it is by self-forgetting that one finds. So what Mr. Fritz, and he and I got along for years and I liked him. But what Mr. Fritz really is saying here is that I'm a member of this group that rejects everything good and holy.
Yeah, exactly.
I find it incredible.
And I think, like I said, it shows a lack of good judgment of our city council, and
Right across the board.
And certainly, God, like I said earlier, is not going to honor this appointment, and therefore Fort Dodge won't be honored.
No, it won't. I don't know what Councilman McCaleb or Nelson had to say about it. They weren't quoted in the paper if they had anything to say about it.
But they did vote yes.
But they did vote yes, which is astonishing. Our entire city council, with the exception of Councilman Flattery, who's a Catholic, by the way, and a devout Catholic. I wonder how he'd respond. I got to get him on the air so he can respond to Council Allstad's slander.
Ask him, what is a recovering Catholic?
Well, Joe Coleman's going to be on a little bit later.
Oh, Joe would know.
Joe would, I kind of put myself in the recovering Catholic.
Yeah, because you used to be a Catholic.
I did. I was raised Catholic. Oh, I can say the rosary with the best of them, and I can say a lot. And I can do it sometimes by memory. A lot of things in Catholicism, because that's what we do. We're very big on ritual, as you know.
Yes.
You've studied religions. A recovering Catholic doesn't, and I can assure you, because I've known other recovering Catholics, they may do things like join the Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
They may become agnostic or atheist. And believe me, if that's what Andy would have done, I might have understood that. I said, well, okay, that's not my deal. But in this country, as some of the councilmen alluded to, you can do that. We can do that, but the people of Fort Dodge should have been consulted.
I would agree.
And the council people, again, don't want to do that. Just, oh, no, it's the money. No, it isn't the money. They want Fritz on that council, period, end of story. We're not going to spend the $20,000. They spend millions and millions of dollars every single year. Oh, gosh, we're going to spend $20,000. No, I think we should have the vote.
Yeah. One thing we need to point out is, obviously, Andy Fritz is a Satanist, like you just alluded to or said, and what he said in the paper. But still, you and I would encourage all Christians to pray for him, that he might yet come to the Lord and be saved.
Here's from the book of John, chapter 8, verse 44.
I've heard of the book of John.
As I have. From the book of John, chapter 8, verse 44. You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him.
He is the father of lies.
When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies.
Yes.
Just as a guy who loves the power of the word, I just love the Bible, especially the book of Revelations.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of studying in that lately. It's funny. Not funny, but just a couple of weeks ago, I preached a sermon, War on Earth, or War in Heaven, War on Earth.
Apparently unknown to me, but it's been revealed to us, Pastor. And I believe this in the spiritual sense. It has been revealed to us that there's spiritual warfare happening here in Fort Dodge.
Oh, spiritual warfare is everywhere.
The Southerners were great. I lived in the South a couple of years, North Carolina, and the ministers and pastors there, they'll kind of talk like this, but they very much believed that there was spiritual warfare all around them at all times.
Oh, I believe that too. There was a time in my life that I wasn't so aware of it until I read a book called The Present Darkness, read by the author was Frank Peretti.
Frank Peretti, I've heard the name.
Yeah, and if you didn't believe in spiritual warfare before you read that book, you knew about it when you were done.
So you mentioned prayer.
Yes.
You mentioned prayer. How shall we pray? Should we pray here or not?
Well, I think so.
All right. I'll pray with you.
Thank you. I'll lead us in prayer.
Thank you.
So, Lord Jesus, we come before you at this very moment, and we thank you for the gift of life you give to us. We pray for our community, Lord Jesus, that you might give our leaders wisdom and give them courage as much as anything else to, maybe even undo what they've done, Lord Jesus, because we want to honor you as a community. We want to have you honor us as well, Lord Jesus. For this we ask in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, who died on the cross, who rose from the grave for each one of us, that we might live in heaven forever. Amen.
Amen. I do have a text here for former Councilman Nevin Conrad. I would say to you, oh, Nevin, you may call into this program at 3:35 because Councilman Conrad seems to be telling us really the opposite of what the messenger printed. Now, somebody's wrong here. Either Councilman Conrad is wrong or the messenger is flat wrong, because this, and I don't think Nevin would mind me reporting this, Nevin tells us, I was there last night. Andy stated he's an atheist. He said he does not believe in supernatural beings, that he would include all gods and Satan. Also, the council is required to make an appointment. That much we do know. An election has to be petitioned. That was misrepresented last night. It's not an either or. It's an appointment, then an election, if then an election is petitioned. This is not what the messenger reported. I was not there. So,
Nor was I.
So, Nevin, please get a hold of me. You know how to do it. And we'll put you on the air. You know, Nevin's a good guy. And Andy has never done a thing wrong to me ever.
Nor I.
Oh, now here, I got another text. Nevin's not coming on. Oh, come on, be a sport. No,
Michael, you're just too good.
I guess so. Well, I don't want to make light of this, you know.
I think that's wise.
I don't want to condemn anyone or react in anger or rage, but I think we should know what we're dealing with.
I agree.
I would think that we should, and we should.
And the citizens of Fort Dodge need to know this.
Yes, they do. You know,
this is our city council. They are our designated leaders. And what does this tell the rest of the world, the state of Iowa, about Fort Dodge when we do something like this?
Well, there are news organizations in Des Moines that know about this.
I'll bet we'll be on Channel 8 tonight for sure.
No, you'll be on Channel 13.
13, okay.
Dave Price will have it. Yeah, this is, I never thought, that I would find myself in a situation like this.
Well, we just have to be aware of these things, because certainly we're going to experience more of these kinds of things as we approach the end times. And certainly if you read the news, we got to be coming to the end of the times when Christ will return. Well,
I certainly hope so.
I hope he gets here pretty quick, because things are going bad for worse.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Our council members don't know anything about Christianity, which is rather remarkable. I thank you, Pastor Alan Rodinius. I thank you.
Hey, the Lord be with you, Mike.
The Lord be with you.
Being my friend and inviting me.
It's always great to see you.
Great seeing you.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Well, I don't know what's going on there. Somebody's been screwing with my board here. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Active Health Clinics is celebrating their 12th anniversary with $12 B12 shots. Most people have a B12 deficiency and don't even know it. Symptoms include fatigue.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
You know, if you want to give the devil himself a good thrashing, you got to go to a Catholic. That's just the rule. So I welcome to the program once again my friend Deacon Joe Coleman of the Catholic Church. His family, of course, very well known as stalwarts of the Catholic Church here in town. So welcome again, Joe. I know I just had you on yesterday, but I do appreciate you taking a little time again today.
How are you today, Michael?
Well, I'm pretty good. And you know, Joe, because we've been talking for a while now, you know I just love to talk about the devil. But not in this case. I assume that you've had a little time to read the Fort Dodge Messenger today on now Councilman Fritz's membership in the Satanic Temple, or an alliance with the Satanic Temple. Now, Councilman Fritz tells us that the Satanic Temple holds as a tenet that they do not believe in supernatural beings. But I have been to the Satanic Temple website, and they most certainly do. That is a satanic symbol at the top of their website. It's goat's head, the pentagram, the whole thing. Ugly iconography, to say the very least. So there's two possibilities here. Councilman Fritz doesn't know what he got himself into, or the messenger is wrong, or there's actually three possibilities. He does know. And my question to you, of course, is how should we, as citizens of Fort Dodge and people of faith, respond to a public figure who has, and I never thought I'd say this, come out apparently as part of a satanic group?
Well, first and foremost, I think you have to separate the person from the concept, from Satanism. Yeah. And, when you and I talk, I always have my lawyer's hat standing by. Okay?
Yes, you do. I sometimes think I'm getting legal advice, but
because that's a necessary part of my persona.
Yes, sir.
And you and I live in a very pluralistic society.
Yes.
We accept all forms of faith and non-faith, bizarre things, traditional things, orthodox things, and that is guaranteed under our Constitution and under our state of law. And Satanism, as a general proposition, falls within the concept of a religion, even though it professes to be non-religious. So when we have beliefs which are, if you will, otherworldly, we kind of fall within that generic term of religion. And you know what? A lot of people hate that, who are kind of on the outside. They hate to be under that umbrella of quote unquote religion. But so first things first, we respect everyone's right to their religious belief.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, and I put my deacon hat on and leave my lawyer hat off, the Catholic Church is, we start out with baptism. And and every Catholic knows that when you are baptized, your godparents, or if you are of age, are asked some very specific questions. Do you reject Satan and all of his work?
All of his work.
And
yes.
all of his empty promises. And do you reject him as the father of sin and the prince of darkness? And if you say no to those, I don't, well, then you're not going to be baptized, because that is part of the ritual of accepting God. And you and I have talked about this many times on the program before, the concept of both order and disorder. And in my way of thinking, and in the church's way of thinking, and I'm an adherent to that, the concept of Satan is the ultimate disorder, because it is the ultimate denial of God and what he stands for, and the complete repudiation of Jesus Christ. And there's no other way to say it, Mike. There it is.
No, there is no
mean,
other way to say it.
You can't.
Some of our
You can't-
some of our council people last night tried to say it a lot different ways. Councilwoman Sure, as you probably saw, described it as sad that we would take that, take it as that. And
we get back to apples and oranges again, and you got to decide what you're talking about. If we're talking about a public servant who is willing to serve, who is competent, capable, and does good work, his religious belief should not be in the mix.
That's right.
But that's the apple side of it. But it gets blended when you come over to the orange side of it and you start to talk about Satan and whether it's good to believe in Satan, to worship Satan, to call upon Satan to assist you. I mean, who wants to invite that stuff in? You've got to be, a brick short of a load or 10 bricks short of a load to invite evil into your life, in my judgment.
Yeah.
But
well, let me talk to Lawyer Joe here just for a second. Nobody contests for a single solitary second that Councilman Fritz or anyone else has the right to believe as they wish in this great country. If you would like to be a Satanist or agnostic or whatever, by all means, that is your right. I will not agree with you, but there's a lot of things in the world I don't agree with that are happening right now. However, we're talking now as ordinary citizens of Fort Dodge, at least I am, and what motivates people to vote. What motivates people when they want to pick their leaders? What sort of people do we want as our leaders? That is the real question. Do we want somebody who's part of the Satanic Temple? Should we have been consulted? Should our other city council members not really, should we expect a little more respect from our city council people when we come forward with these very legitimate issues?
I certainly hear what you're saying, but when I come on your program, I come on your program as Deacon Joe,
yes,
if you will, with a certain amount of I don't know what stature as a deacon to profess what I believe our church talks about. This goes in a different direction than my function as a deacon. You're asking me about my function now as a citizen and what I think in the public specter.
No, I'm not, Joe.
Joe,
Joe, I am not asking you about as a citizen. I'm asking you as a man of faith, what motivates you to vote and what motivates other people to vote for a particular candidate. It is what they believe. If they believe like you and I do, we're more inclined to vote for them. If they don't believe, not think, but believe differently, we're less inclined.
Mike, I hear you, and I love talking to you, but I'm like Will Rogers. All I know is what I read in the newspaper, okay?
All right.
And quite frankly, I don't know Mr. Fritz well enough to offer an opinion. I respect what he wants to do simply because that is what I owe you, and I owe him, and I owe every other person that I run into. When it begins to impinge upon me or mine or my community, that's a different story. And as of this writing, as of this speaking, I am not conversant enough to know what's at stake. Apparently, from what I read in the newspaper, again, my Will Rogers approach, Mr. Fritz, this was known before. And
I didn't know that. I've been following the city council for a long time. I remember when Andy was first elected to the city council. I did not know, and it was never said by anyone that Andy had these beliefs.
Mm-hmm. And that, Mike, You know, it's so nice to be able at some point to profess ignorance, and I get to profess ignorance on this because I simply didn't know. I'm not privileged. I live outside of the city limits, so I don't have the privilege of voting in the city elections. But my experience has been, by and large, the people who have been on our city council in Fort Dodge, both previously and at present, really try to do the best they can do under the circumstances.
Most of them do. We've had our share of ne'er-do-wells on the city council, and we've had some pretty bad mayors too.
Well, once again, the cheap way out for me on that is that's why I live in the county.
That's why you live in the county. There you go.
But yeah, you know, it's I can see where this causes a hubbub because it really flies in the face of our orthodoxy here in this community.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a Catholic, a Presbyterian, a Methodist, a Lutheran, a Baptist, you know, we all probably wind up on the same side of that equation, that we try to avoid Satan whenever we can.
Yeah, I've
I think
tried
most
that.
people would agree with that.
I would too. And by the way, I've known Andy for a while. Never well. I know him mainly as a city councilman, and he has appeared on this program in that capacity in the past. He's a nice guy. And I'm sure that he has the skills to do the job. He's done it before. However, this is something we should probably know, and it makes me question the process. And the last thing we need is another one of our institutions to look like they're pulling a fast one. I just, you know, it's not within our faith tradition. We should expect more from them.
Well, I'm not trying to disagree with you, but I don't know if it comes within the purview of our faith tradition. It certainly comes within the purview of our body politic to know these things ahead of time or at the time. And that's really the duty of the citizen, is to ferret out who their candidates are, what they stand for, and how that's going to impact the way that they govern if they're put in a position of governance. I think that's pretty straightforward, don't you?
I think it is too, you know, and I don't think there's a quarter of an inch of separation between Lawyer Joe and Deacon Joe. I mean, we just don't split our personality that way. Every time you open your mouth, at least on my program, I know you're a Catholic, and I'll bet you practice law that way as well. Do you still practice law, by the way?
I do not. I am fully retired, much to the happiness of the legal world. I'm sure.
After the first of the year, I'll join you in retirement, and I'm sure that many radio listeners in our town will rejoice.
Well, you know what? Don't sell yourself short, my friend. I think that the stirring of the pot, which I know you do.
Oh, that's my job.
In my judgment, is beneficial to our community, because these are issues that we need to discuss, we should discuss, and it points out the necessity for learning about your candidates that you're going to elect, or who are going to represent you and do things in your name.
Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. And this
but
is
like I said, the Catholic Church's position is that we try to avoid Satan at all walks and moments of our life, because we are believers in Christ and we like to follow that path. And you and I both know from the New Testament, starting in the Old Testament in Genesis, the devil, starting in the New Testament, Christ and Satan, Christ being tempted by Satan, was really, those were really the ultimate acts of defiance of God when Satan was tempting Christ.
Yes. I mentioned in the last hour that the Satanic Temple, that now Councilman Fritz tells us that he's a part of, they're selling T-shirts with a pentagram on it, and the T-shirt says "Hail Thyself." In other words, it's the very sin of pride, if you're a Catholic, that that's the message that the T-shirt is sending us. Not hail Jesus,
Well,
not hail anybody else like that. Hail thyself.
and you and I have talked about this. You know, the father of the sin of pride is Satan.
Yes.
And we know that from time immemorial. Tradition teaches that when Satan's primary downfall was when he and his cohorts learned that Jesus Christ was going to have two natures and was going to come into the temporal now from the eternal now, that he was going to be the second person of the Trinity and God, and that Satan refused to worship him as God because he was a man.
Yes.
Which in essence shows Satan's hatred for man.
Yes.
Everything that Satan attempts to do in this life is to destroy man and his soul. Everything.
Yes.
There is not one good thing that stems from Satan. And I mean, you can't say it any other way. I'm sorry, and I think you have to be clear.
Yes, you do. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here now. We're trying to be clear. I mean, the church especially, early Renaissance painters, especially Raphael, had very dramatic pictures of the Archangel Michael defeating Satan and consigning him to hell. There are all kinds of great, vivid pictures of God triumphing over Satan. And Satan is usually half man and half serpent or half goat or any of those things. And of course, Satan is Lord of the Flies, Mephistopheles, the Prince of Darkness, the Prince of Darkness. Now that is a great one. The Prince of Darkness.
Absolutely. And it's scary stuff. And like I say, I try to avoid, welcoming it in at all turns in my life and in my home, because I think there's only a downside. There is no upside to that. And, but so that we make things perfectly clear, we are a pluralistic society, not pluralistic. We're a little bit of that sometimes too.
Yes.
But the pluralism we have directs us to respect and honor all forms of religion, atheism, and every other ism that comes down the line, so long as all people are conducting themselves within the framework of the social contract.
That's right.
Period.
Right. You are correct.
So it's I know I'm sure that there's there's a big buzz in the community, and you and I both can understand that. And the cop out for me once again is to say I live out in the county.
The question in the buzz is, first of all, the treatment of the people of Fort Dodge by the council people who voted us in, voted Councilman Fritz in. Their explanations were smug, arrogant, and dismissive. Actually, Councilman Allstott actually compared what was happening with Andy Fritz to the resistance that John Kennedy faced because of his Catholicism when he became president of the United States. I thought it was a totally inappropriate metaphor. I mean, Satanism and Catholicism. What are you saying here? Exactly. But most of all, this has been done in our name by our elected representatives, but without our permission. Once again, without our permission. And in the United States,
Michael, go ahead. More power to you. But I need to make it very, very clear that I am not forming first of all, I didn't hear any of the comments, so I cannot form an opinion on them. And secondarily, as I told you, depending on which hat I have on, either my lawyer hat or my deacon hat, with my deacon hat, I can talk about Satan. With my lawyer hat, I can talk about the pluralistic society that we have, and we need to respect it. I say nothing else about that because I really don't have any. I at least like to have some footing under me when I try to form an opinion.
Yes, but we have people who represent us. They're not rulers. The people are supposed to govern themselves. Well, this is a conversation that we could have for a long, long time, Joe. But I think you've answered the question I had, and I do appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on once again after you just spent an hour with me yesterday, and weigh in on this. So thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. I love spending time with
anyway, this is a couple weeks ago. So then when I got up there again last night, I says, I have got a petition going right now, and I need 213 or 15 signatures. I forget what the final count is. And Mark Crimmins gets up and says, Richard, you better get your facts straight. I was already down at the courthouse and asked the lady how many signatures I really do need. And she told me 213 or 215. She said, whatever I told you is correct. So Mark Crimmins doesn't have his figures right. But anyway, I need 215 signatures. And I have to get them done within 14 days. And what was really nice last night, when the people from Julie and David or Dean walked in, they're from my church, and I'm also with Pastor Allen. I said, what are you guys doing here? And they said, well, we don't like Andy Fritz being on the ballot here.
Now, who is this now you were talking to?
Dean and Julie. They were David. They were the Davis.
Right.
And they're from my church, and they said, well, we're not familiar. We don't want Dean or what's his name on the ballot. And I turned and I said, I'm so happy that I thought a lot of people were against me on this issue, but I'm glad to see there's people behind me on this particular issue. So I got up and spoke about, why didn't you originally say there was 4 people that ran the last election. 2 of you won, 2 of us got defeated. Why didn't you take our names, my name and Brooks' name, and say this is the person because we spent a lot of money in that particular election. Then why weren't we considered as the next candidate for this seat until the term ends? Of course, that was no good. So then I talked to Minky, which I also lost some respect for him, because he said there was 3 people that they had names for they were talking about, and of course, and I said, well, what about Brooks? Well, he said, well, Brooks didn't want it, but I talked to Brooks, but they didn't even notify her. So this is behind the scenes. And it's unfair to the people for Dodge. We do need a special election. And the only way we're going to get it done, if I can get all the signatures on my petition and present it, and then we have a special election. Now, the drawback on this whole issue is they're complaining about $20,000. But if 3 people run, we have to have a primary. There's $20,000. Then we have to go back to a special election, which would cost them $40,000. So it would have been much easier just nominating myself or Brooks to that position.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't. Yes, So, but anyway, that's what I'm calling about. I do have a petition out there, and I do need signatures. So hopefully I've got like 14 days to get it filed.
So Crimmins is giving you a hard time. I'd do a pose down with him right now. Get all hands and friends on his ass. You know what I mean? Just pose down right there in the city council chamber. Strip to the waist, show the muscles, see who's got the best wins. I know it's going to be you.
Well, I'm a fighter. I do not, they get mad at me because I question what they do. And that, that's my right. I have that right to question them. And like I said last night, like you've been talking about Allstate, I couldn't believe he said this. And I could not believe Menke did what he did. And the other gal, what she did, said, and it was just unbelievable. But the most important thing, when I got out of this whole meeting, when that Dean and that group left the building, and I'm leaving the building after the council meeting, and then I'm outside. They're all out there waiting for me. Richard, we want to sign your petition. So that means there is a lot of people behind me on getting this petition signed. That's the only way we're going to get it to get him off the board. We have to have that petition, so we have a special election.
All right. Do you have a problem with Andy Fritz, or just the way this was handled?
The way this was handled.
Okay.
And Andy, I get along with Andy too, but I do not believe what his beliefs are and stuff like that. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. There's 2 things here, Richard. First of all, the mayor and Andy Fritz are friends. They've been friends for a long time. And I think the rest of the council people liked Andy. So this whole, we're trying to save money is just a scam. That's
exactly.
just a lot of smoke. It's not, it doesn't mean anything. Councilwoman Schur was kind of talking down her nose to the people, and Kim Allstott was comparing what happened with Fritz or something to the Catholic Church and John Kennedy. I don't know. I have no idea what what point he was trying to make actually at all. I would want to bring up something else with you, Richard. I'm not trying to be insulting, but you've run several times and lost every time.
Yes, I know that.
So why should we spend this money? I'm going to play devil's advocate with you. if you have lost all these times, why should we have another special election?
Because here's what I'm going to say with Dave Flattery. 2 weeks ago, Monday night, I went up to Dave and I said, Dave, I want that seat. And so he says, well, I'll put your name in and, to recommend or whatever. But to find out that the mayor on that previous Saturday talked to all the council members about who they wanted. Now, to me, that's backdoor politics. And I don't think that was right. And that's why I decided, well, I already told him before I was thinking about a petition. Well, after reading that in the paper about what the mayor did, and I decided, well, okay, we're going to have a petition. Whether I win or lose, that's not with me. I'm getting to, because I feel the people of Fort Dodge should have the right to pick that next council member, not the city council.
Well, you can call it backdoor politics, and it is, but that's the way things were done. The first thing, Councilman Allstad, who was pro tem leader last night, first thing he did was call for a vote of the council, and of course, Councilman Fritz was voted unanimously to the council by everybody who was there.
But you know who got up and questioned that action? That was me there. I got up 4 times. I don't know if it was only in the paper one time. I got up and questioned you. Why aren't you letting the people speak? And they told me we don't have to. And Mark Crimmins said, no, they don't have to. I said, oh, wait, what? And guess what? They looked at each other. Okay, we'll let you speak. See, so that's what it's just the way that whole issue last night ran. I mean, I got up 4 times and questioned them. And I know they got tired of hearing me, but that's just the way I am. You know that.
Yeah. So you got a problem with Crimmins? You're going to have a what? Some sort of boxing match with him?
No. I had the code. I mean, I got the code and everything. I try to make sure I know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, sure. That always helps. Some of the council people didn't seem to know what they were talking about.
No, they didn't seem to know exactly right. But I want to give my side of the story. But I just want the people of Fort Dodge. We can get a special election, but I need my signatures on this petition that's going to be going around.
All right.
And I got 14 days to get it in and get it published.
Okay, so what do you need? 215, you said?
Yeah, roughly 250. But you want more because, and the only people who can vote for this issue is the people in Fort Dodge. It can't be, Colville or.
Right. Yeah.
It has to be just the people of Fort Dodge that can only vote for the seat.
Yeah, well, I would think people from Webster City weren't eligible. That's
no,
I
don't know. No, I mean, like, some of the Coleman district and stuff like that, they're not allowed. They can't vote because they're not in the city limits. See?
Right. I perfectly understand that. So let's say that you got these 215 signatures. Then what happens?
Then I take it down to the courthouse, Webster County, and file it with the auditor down there. And then she'll set the date of when the special election will be. First, she'll check it out and make sure all the signatures are right or whatever, everything's done right. That's why you always want to make sure you get a lot more than what you're supposed to have, because in case there is some errors in there, it'll offset it.
Okay.
On there. So then she'll decide what date that they'll have the special election. Then the candidates would be able to go out, be able to file papers if they want to run for this particular seat. But again, if 2 of us run, there'll be 1 election. If 3 of us run, there'll be 2 elections.
So one of the candidates then could be Andy Fritz.
That's a possibility, yes, but I don't think he will get elected after now.
Well, we'd have to see about
I mean, he's got he had a lot of votes the last time he ran. But I don't think he'll make it this time if he runs. There's too many people upset.
Well, and I think the council knew that too, which is why they did what they did.
Exactly, right.
And I how did this come to light anyway? I've known Andy. We're not tight friends, but I always liked him. We had kind of a falling out a while ago.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this about him. I've never heard. He's run before in the past. He's never talked about this. How did this? Who found out about this?
I think Dean and Davis and Julie. I think they kind of looked it up on the internet. And plus, my pastor even said something to me when I was getting some signatures at the church. He said something about it too. So. And Pastor Allen, and I think they pretty well knew they already did some research on him or something. I think it's because of the nose ring in the nose and the beard and stuff, stuff like that. I think that's what got a lot of people upset.
Well, the nose ring, and that was popular a while ago. I thought even when Andy got the nose ring, I thought, well, hey, buddy, you're too old to be doing this.
Exactly right. And then there's a lot of older people here in Fort Dodge. We all still have, we go to church and and stuff, and he just did not. I did not feel that he should be he was a good council member. I'm not saying he wasn't, but I don't feel he's the right choice that they're making for today's world.
All right. Okay.
So I'm letting you know up front. I'm running anyway. If I get in, I'm going to run.
Okay. So if you run and you lose again,
I lose.
Okay.
That's how I look at it. But I do it because I've always wanted to be on seat. I go to these, I go there most of the council meetings, so I know what's going on. It's just like last night. Well, Andy Fritz he's been on the board or on the council, and he knows what's going on. Well, I go all the council meetings. I know what's going on too. So I feel I'm very qualified for it myself.
All right, Richard Higgins has been our guest. Thanks for calling in, Richard.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. It's 355.
More and more farmers and ranchers are generating income and controlling wildlife damage by leasing their land for hunting.
Landowners that have property that have a mixture of crops, timber, water sources, or CRP ground is a very good opportunity for hunters to go after the game that they're pursuing.
Troy Langen is with the Hunting Lease Network, a part of Farmers National Company. We'll hear more from him next on today's Managing for Profit on Brownfield.
Here's farmer and businessman James Wood.
We farm about 3,500 acres. There's pipelines everywhere. The contractor working on my property did not have the lines located before he began work, and it resulted on a strike on a natural gas pipeline. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it could have been much worse.
Never assume the location or depth of underground lines. Always call 811 or visit clickbeforeyoudig.com before you start work. A message from the Pipeline Operators for Ag Safety campaign.
You might not know everyone in your community, but if you did, you'd see that people in recovery from mental and substance use disorders are all around. Reach out for support and begin your recovery journey. Join the Voices for Recovery. Strengthen families and communities.
For confidential information on mental and substance use disorders, including prevention and treatment referrals for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Troy Langen is with the Hunting Lease Network, and he tells Brownfield leasing hunting rights can be beneficial for both the landowner and the hunters.
Our system is set up as an auction-style system, so the website actually is developed per property to show what one could expect. The system also enables everybody to see what's available. Let's say if it's going to be for waterfowl, deer, turkey, whatever that property offers. It does also allow the sportsman the ability to walk the property with permission to be able to see what's out there before they bid on it. So that way then it makes sure it's a good fit for their family and friends. One of the main things we do, make sure it's a guaranteed place for them to go to. Fair price, their ability to see what the price is available on there. And it's a quality management of their to be able to see what they want to do for improvements. Let's say if they want to add a food plot or maybe have different areas for tree stands, things like that. From the landowner's perspective then, compared to the sportsman, it's obviously additional income from the property than what they can expect to bring in. With having the management services in place, we make sure to take care of all that paperwork from the accounting side of things to make sure the proper liability lease is in place, what liability coverage insurance is in place. And not only that, but just control of knowing who is on the property and who has permission to be out there.
What can landowners, farmers, ranchers expect for side income from leasing hunting rights?
David.
Great, Mike. How are you?
I should turn your microphone on if I'm going to talk with you.
Okay.
I beg your pardon.
That's all right.
You know, David and I already talked about this, but I think we've covered the Andy Fritz case enough for today. No doubt there'll be further discussions in the future, but we did buy a new fire truck last night, and those suckers are expensive.
Holy cow. Yeah, this is a new ladder truck. So our ladder truck is, I think it's plus 20 years old or 25 even. And so it's about at the end of its life. It's an important piece of equipment to have. You know, it's got the 100-foot ladder on it that you can get into the, you know, get up to the tall buildings or other areas. Yeah, we placed the order last night. The price approximately $1,650,000 for a ladder truck.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's a long delay for build out. I mean, we're not expecting delivery until October of 2025.
Whoa.
Yeah, but if
3
we
years,
yeah, and we don't pay for it till then. But if we place the order now, they had a 7%.
probably be a lower price.
Yeah, there's a 7% increase coming November 1st. So
Okay.
So and 7% is quite a bit that amount of money. So we went in and placed the order, and then you know the fire department will select a truck committee amongst their firefighters that will take into consideration what are the needs and then work that into design and of the apparatus, what ends up going on it and how it serves. It's, you know, it'll serve the same function, but you know what you put on it, because things change over time and how you attack fires change, and what is on one piece of apparatus will be different from what's on another piece. So
what why the 100-foot ladder? We don't have buildings that tall.
well, when you got to think about it more from a geometric standpoint. It can't be right up against the building, so it's usually set back or in the middle of the street. So yeah,
it's at a 30-degree or 40-degree angle.
So you need a ladder to get to the taller stuff.
Not me. I ain't getting on that ladder, boy. I'll let those younger guys handle that.
Years ago, I got on, not here at my other job. I climbed up the one of those big ladders, and you're up there when you're on the top. And you know, I literally when I was on it, I was so scared. I felt like I was denting the metal, gripping so tight, the thing's bouncing around. And yeah, because you're like 10 stories in the air when you're up on that thing. And it's not so bad climbing up, because you're just climbing, and then you get to the top and you look around and you're like, holy cow. And the thing moves and shakes a little bit, and I'm like scared to death. And then it must have been maybe a couple months later, I go to a fire scene, and those firefighters are like running up the thing, and it's like, wow, that takes some guts.
Yeah, it takes training and guts. Yeah, I mean, you got to trust the ladder, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Gosh, wow. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I don't trust ladders that much. I've never been that good on ladders anyway. Anyway, I'm not trying to be offensive when I ask this question, but we haven't had an assistant fire chief for 4 years. Now we've hired one for a salary of over $100,000 and a complete benefit package, which will probably be worth another $25,000.
At least.
Is that at least?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a necessary expenditure for a position that was vacant 4 years? Is this guy somebody's brother-in-law or something, or is he your first cousin? Or
no, he's not my.
Is
first
he married
cousin.
to one of the Bemrick girls? Or
he is not. But it is nice. So his name's Matt Price.
Yeah,
he's a firefighter now with the Johnson Grimes fire department. Actually, he is a firefighter, but he's a shift commander down there. Comes with a lot of experience. He's got a bachelor's degree. He's actually got a master's degree in public administration.
Well, I believe he's qualified. There's no doubt.
Yeah. So that, I know I'm not really getting to the answer to the question yet. So when Chief Hergenreiter took over the department, we had an assistant chief, Lenny Sanders, that was
I remember
basically kind of overseeing the EMS side. And then we ended up taking on, and Lenny left to go to Iowa Central and taught. And then and somewhere in that process, we started taking over full-time EMS responsibility from the hospital. We then hired their supervisor, Terry Evans, to come over and handle kind of the EMS supervisory role. So that took what Lenny was doing. And then with the chief prior to Steve, Kent Hewlett did a lot of the fire marshal stuff because he had a lot of experience over the years in fire marshal. So he was doing that. But Steve didn't want to do fire marshal. So we ended up appointing one of the existing firefighters, to that role of fire marshal. And so that's how that kind of moved. But what we've experienced since Steve, so basically it's a department where you had just the chief that was overseeing, the 3 shifts. And then as we grew into this EMS division where we have another, I'm going to get the number wrong, but like 15 to 20 people in EMS, it's a lot for one person to supervise. And we realized that you need at that day-to-day, at that high level, you need your leader, your visionary, and then you also need someone who can help out with a lot of the day-to-day stuff. So
of course the Fort Dodge Fire Department isn't a huge corporation. You're kind of painting a picture here of a bigger department than what we have. I understand what you're saying personally. I mean, where did this come from? Does it come from the fire department? Did they request this help? Are you telling us that the fire department needed more supervisory help, qualified supervisory help?
Yeah.
Okay, and they needed that because
it's a lot of work. Mike, you ought to come down and just check it out sometime. It's a lot more work than you think. There's a lot of things going on.
I don't know. You're right. I don't.
There's I don't know if we need to go in it all, but I mean, there's lots of, from keeping the trucks running, all the machines running, keeping everybody fully equipped, to, then, dealing with the personnel issues that come up, dealing with scheduling, staffing, payroll, and all that process. And then you also have, training, and is training adequately getting done? Is it getting recorded? I mean, it's a complicated venture when it's done right and done professionally. And one of the things that Steve's been really pushing in his tenure as chief is we're going to do things right. We're going to do things professional. We're going to be the best department in the state. And that does take a lot of work. And it is something that it wasn't something that was a specific request by Steve. It's something we've been evaluating over the time as the position, as the department has evolved, because it's made a lot of change, more change under Steve's tenure than probably through the history of the department, other than, obviously technology's upgraded, but, with taking over and being the full-time ambulance service, and then the requirements that require not only in City Fort Dodge, but responding rurally, to then doing inter-facility transfers, it's become a lot of work. It's a lot. It's a different department than even it was 10 years ago, for sure. So you see the need for the leadership, and it helps out in a number of different ways. It helps out with, again, the day-to-day activities, help supplement, in other areas, and, help Steve with work on strategic and what's the future of the department. But then also, there's succession planning that we need to think of, as, who's going to be the next chief of police, having
Steve's just a youngster. Come on.
He's
when
not
you
a
put him out
youngster.
the door.
He looks good, but he's not a
He looks good for his age.
Yeah.
All right.
He's fit, but he's not a youngster. I mean, there'll be a time when he retires. So
yeah, there's sure. Yeah, there's going to be a time for all of us.
Uh-huh.
My time's approaching.
No, it's a very important position, and we got a very qualified person for the job. He does have connections to Fort Dodge. His wife is from Fort Dodge. So,
oh, really?
They're bringing back a family. There's a family of 4, young family of 4 moving back to Fort Dodge.
Oh, that's
getting
nice.
Involved in the community. I know it's great, and it's great to get someone of his caliber, I should say, of skill to our community.
And describe those qualifications again. He came from Grimes. You said he was.
He's got. I would say he's not quite out. He's not quite 20 in. He's probably more like 15 in, between firefighter, and then working his way up to shift commander at Johnson Grimes. That's a recently combined department.
Okay.
Of
Are they a full-time department? Like we are
they
here?
are full-time. They prior to that they weren't. I think maybe Johnson was and Grimes wasn't, or something like that. I could be getting that messed up, but. So they are a full-time department now.
Okay. Well, I can talk with you about the fire department, but I can't talk with the mayor because he gets real protective with the fire department. Sometimes I think he's coming over the council.
Oh, yeah. Well, what do you say? Ask him.
Is the department necessary? Is the department like this necessary? Because
Absolutely.
mayors we've had in the past have suggested it wasn't.
I don't. Well, yeah. I guess if I criticize that mayor who is now deceased, I don't want to be mean.
It wasn't just him. I mean, there
but-
were past mayors, more than one, and city council people who questioned whether the fire department, as it exists now, was really necessary for the town this size.
Yeah,
and for the calls and the volume of calls that we got.
I can tell you right now, I think for the volume of calls we're getting, we probably are a little short on staff. I know
And
we're
that-
short on staff.
And that
on
would
the
be
EMS.
mainly ambulance calls,
Yeah.
right? Now that we've taken the
But-
ambulance service.
But you know, it is an oversimplification to call an EMS call an ambulance call, because an EMS call is a cardiac call, and all you're sending is the two people in the ambulance. The outcome could be a lot worse. That's why you have first responders. And for years, even when Unity Point, which was Trinity back at the time, the ambulance came out of there.
Yeah.
Our engine ran as first responders, because you need, a lot of times well, unless you got dispatch, which sometimes doesn't know exactly, they don't get the full story of what's actually going on. You want to try to respond with enough staff. If you got a significant situation, a cardiac or something like that versus something else, you want to make sure you're fully staffed, and you want to get them there as soon as possible. So for years, we were the first responders. The engine, an engine ran, and usually was at the scene before the ambulance to start administering whatever aid was necessary. And if they needed transport, then the ambulance transported. So now we are the ambulance, and so they're coming out of the same location, which probably gives us a little bit faster response time for most calls in the city, because we're at a central location now. But you still need to run the engine if you need 4 people on the scene, which, for some calls you're going to want it. It's a big deal. I mean,
well, thank you for a full and complete discussion of these issues.
It's hard to do in 15 minutes, and we can spend hours talking about this.
Well,
we should get Hergenreiter in here to talk.
I like Steve. He's a cool guy, and I know he's a top chief. But this program is about answering questions that people sit around in coffee shops and complain about. They don't call, but they'll see me in the street. I almost called. And why didn't you ask this question? Well, because it didn't occur to me, and if it occurred to you, call in. So if you're one of those people sitting out there that are grumbling but don't say anything, now's your time to say something. 515-955-1400. 515-955-1400.
Yeah.
I speak for the cave people in Fort Dodge.
The cave people. Well, and there's probably one thing mentioning, and I would say years ago, but I would say it's more like a generation ago now. There were cities that were able to have very robust volunteer fire departments and very robust paid on call. I would say that's a different time now. If you see this around the country, is that volunteerism for fire service is down. One is you need a lot more training, and the equipment's a lot more complicated. You just don't get people out for volunteerism. We're seeing a lot in rural Iowa. The volunteer services are really suffering.
That's right. And well, you're right there. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling to praise the fire department. I worked at the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility, and they responded to that fire. They saved the building. I mean, you need professionals to do the work, and I don't mind paying taxes, for those guys, because they put their lives on the line, and I just want to thank them. They did a very good job at the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility.
Well, if there's one thing that I hope we can all agree on, is we need fire and we need police. I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's if the city government or whatever government can't provide basic safety services, let's get rid of government. We'll do it ourselves. But I do appreciate your call, and I know the people over at the Fort Dodge Fire Department appreciate your call as well. So thank you for that insight.
Yeah, appreciate your comments.
All right, thank you very much. That was a nice call to get. 515-955-1400. If you have a question or comment, that would be a good thing. That's what the program is for, really. It's turned into a complaint program, mainly mine, what bugs me from a day-to-day basis. But really, I envisioned it as a public forum where people could call in and discuss without a lot of passion the things that are concerning to us here in Webster County and the surrounding area.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just turns out to be me complaining about Biden, but What the heck?
Yeah, well, it's easy, right?
Yeah,
You don't have to work hard on that one, do you?
really, that's a slow-moving target there. I'll tell you. Virtually and literally a slow-moving target there. So, I can't hardly wait for Friday to get here so Nevin and Randy and I can have our sports show and complain about the Iowa Hawkeyes. My God, they were awesome.
Oh boy,
yeah, that was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we could have had a swim team rather than this football team.
Yeah, don't get me started there. Yeah, we should have a swim team considering all the revenues and more are back that were supposedly lost during the. But it wasn't about money.
No,
it wasn't about money. The swim team and the men's tennis team and the men's gymnastics team, that was never about money. That was about not wanting those programs.
Why didn't they want those programs?
It's distractions. It's
a distraction. I mean,
distraction from. Well, I mean, I guess it is about money. It's not about they couldn't afford it. Let me say, it is about money because all those programs take money.
Yeah,
there's only 2 programs that give money, and that's men's
basketball and
football, and wrestling is about a break even.
Yeah. But you try to take a wrestling program away from the University of Iowa, and there would be a riot.
Yeah, there would be. Yeah,
there would be a march in Iowa City by outraged citizens with pitchforks and torches.
Absolutely.
Torches. I mean, that's just the kind of state that we are. Sports is educational. That's what bothered me about the whole thing. In gymnastics, I'm not a gymnast, but I appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's terrific. I have played tennis, but I wouldn't pay to see it necessarily.
Well, athletic departments are now run by people that are in it for the big business because the business is big. You got to have the big donors. You got to have the big ticket sales. I mean, it's all about getting money and filling people in the seats and being able to improve your stadiums by selling huge revenue bonds and building more box seats so you can sell more box seats. It's a big business. It's not about education anymore.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because sports again are educational. All of them.
Yeah.
I mean, band is educational. Yeah. Participation in pep club and all those things. Those are educational, and we need more, not less. The chess club.
yeah. I mean, I'm a firm believer. I got 2 kids in these sort of non-revenue sports. I guess my son's not anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's an experiential thing. It's an educational thing. And the people that aren't into sports can be in the other things or can support those organizations and be fans of it. Whereas
we can't all be basketball players and football players or wrestlers,
No.
That doesn't mean that a segment of the student population benefits greatly from swimming or band or the Hawkeye band is a good group.
Well, yeah. And again, unfortunately, you got decision makers who are only thinking about dollars and not thinking about the fact that the university benefits from these programs.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. The athletic department pays for it, but you take my son for an example. He's about to graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering
from the University
of Iowa. And so he was there, getting a degree, paying tuition, paying room and board, adding to the economy. If there was no swim team there like now, he wouldn't be there. He'd probably gone to Iowa State, where the engineering program's a little different, maybe a little bit more well known. But he went to Iowa because he went there to swim, and there was 30 other young men each year that are no longer going there because there isn't a swim program. You start doing the economic math on that, and sure, it comes out of the athletic department, the little bit they pay for swim, but the overall community and the economy and the school loses.
Well, I haven't forgiven Iowa State University for dropping the baseball program many years ago. There's one thing that I would reverse, it would be that.
And
that was a Title IX decision too, and I didn't think I think they could have respected Title IX and kept their baseball program. But I guess it was simpler just to cut the program loose, which again is an outrage. But
yeah, I mean, I wasn't around at the time, but there were a lot of schools at University of Illinois where I was around that. When they were doing Title IX, they were cutting programs too.
Yeah,
they cut a lot of programs.
Yeah, I know.
They don't have men's swim, and neither Iowa State doesn't have men's swim, and neither does Northern Iowa.
So you can be honest. When the Hawkeyes were playing Illinois, who did you root for? Really?
I root for the Hawkeyes. I do. I mean, I got 2 kids that are.
I would have been ticked after the way they treated your son. I thought you would have come on, Illini.
No, but it's one of those things where, you root for one team, but when the other team wins, you're like, oh, I don't feel, it's like I feel good for the Illinois. I mean, I really, they've struggled mightily, You know, and
They have.
for many years, and
Who knew
now that
Bielma might be the guy?
Now they got Bielma there, and looks like their program's turned around. You know, I feel good about it for them. I mean, I'm not like an Illinois hater.
Yeah, I would be surprised if you were.
No, I'm the first person in like 3 generations of my family not to go to the University of Illinois.
Where'd you go again?
I went to Western Illinois.
Western Illinois. In Macomb?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Macomb's a small town, right?
It
That's
is.
where Randy went, Goldman.
Yeah.
Or, no, he didn't go there. Excuse me.
Well, he was a grad assistant coach. Our times didn't overlap, but yeah, we tell athletic department stories.
No, I didn't know
Yeah.
you went to Western Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, David Furick has been our guest. Thank you as always, David.
You're welcome, Mike.
All right. This is AM 1400, KVFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. And this program is being brought to you by Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters of Fort Dodge. Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters of Fort Dodge is at 612 South 32nd Street here in town. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 515-576-6481 or online at www.fdwater.com.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
It's 4:32. The news is coming up.
Have the talk of the lifetime with the ones you love.
Grandma, this card asks, when did you get a TV and what was your favorite show?
I think around 1950, they had a Fort Dodge TV station that had a local barn dance.